if you see something clearly enough, your body goes through this involuntary mechanism where it believes that already owns it and then puts you on this path to having that come into your life. If you're not involved in some type of gainful chase of something, I don't know how you get out of bed in the morning. You have a destination for everything that you do. And yet when it comes to life, we seem to wait for life to happen to us instead of us happening to it, right? The only way I can grow my company is to become irrelevant to it. And people go, what the hell does that mean? If I'm going to hire an individual, I want the whole individual. People want to know that they're working for somebody that is really involved or interested in their own future. You just can't do it all. I mean, you're one human being. You can't do it all. And why would you even want to try? It's just so easy to say, here we are. Let's go. We're at X. Let's go to Y. And then I'll give you part of Y. And people are like, okay, cool. Let's go do it.
Expert advice, practical tips, real-life stories. Have less stress, more time, and more money in your business. Welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor.
Martin, you sent me a picture this morning of your wife's office mailbox on fire. What's going on?
Actually, it was the car in front of our building who had just demolished the mailbox that was on fire. Yeah, there's a street there, and after hours, kids go down at about 70 miles an hour. And fortunately, due to great engineering, I mean, seriously, great engineering and airbags, this kid stepped out of the car and walked away. Just totally demolished. This just happened 7:00 last night again.
Wow.
And it caught on fire, and it was but it exploded. This brick mailbox is bigger than an average CEO's desk. It's a fancy deal, and it's gone. I mean,
Wow.
they're in a brick on brick, and this anyway. So yeah, that was stuff
Let me
happens.
see if I can segue this pretty well. So maybe if you do a really great job and engineer your life, you can step away from disaster.
There you go.
In a great way.
Or survive what might have been a disaster, because stuff's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we'll talk about that. So Ken, welcome to the podcast. We're so happy to have you on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about engineering a little bit for your life, if you will, going off of that little introduction there. So Ken, why don't you just share with us a little bit about your background, how you made your way in business?
Well, quickly, I always had a bunch of part-time jobs when I was a kid. And one of the things my father instilled in me, because we had nothing. We lived in a very small house, 5 boys in a very small house in Amherst, Ohio. And they could provide for us and they could give us basic things. But if we wanted more than that, it was like, okay, go out there and trade some labor for what you want. And so that was the thing for me. I was always trading labor for that new baseball bat or trading labor for that new bike or whatever it was. And that to me just seemed like a sensible way to gain things. And I remember I wanted to get my first full-time job. And when I was 15, my high school shared a fence with a industrial park. And that industrial park, there's a hole in that fence. We'd cut through the fence to get to the carryout after school. And I just remember walking through there, and there was always these businesses that were, busy, milling about, a lot of energy, a lot of things, a lot of big boy toys running around like backhoes and stuff, dump trucks and whatever. So I knew someone that worked at one of these places. I wanted to get my first job. I wanted to be able to buy my first used car, take my girlfriend out for pizza, whatever. And so I started at this ditch digging company because I was qualified to do that. And I worked digging ditches in the summertime, and I worked in the office in the winter. And did that for 3 or 4 years. When it came time to go to college, it was like, am I going to do that? Am I not going to do that? They came to me and they said, we want you to help us open franchises around the country because we're reaching too far into the area from just where we were in Cleveland, Ohio. And so I did that. I lived out of a suitcase for 3 or 4 years, opening up franchises from scratch. I figured, learning on other people's dimes how to open up companies was as good as a college education for me at that point. And so I did that. And then in 1986, I got tired of living out of, traveling, living out of a suitcase, got married and moved to Toledo, Ohio, where we opened up our company with 6 people, same industry. And I think we have 225 today. So it's
Wow.
It's been a hell of a ride.
Wow. Amazing. So I think that a lot of what we're going to talk today is kind of woven through your story, but I really want to focus in on mindset and just understanding the vision you have for your life, for your work, and just a clear understanding and self-awareness of yourself and your business. So you mentioned that you knew that you wanted to get the used car, take your girlfriend on a date. You knew that you wanted to make money. And it sounded like even from a young age, your parents and your father maybe would have instilled that in you to, hey, if you want it, go get it. Right. Maybe talk a little bit about how your father set you up for success in the way that you think.
Well, we avoided because it was earlier than what I call the perfect storm, which we can talk about. But we were outside every day. We were shoveling, raking, planting, snow plowing. I mean, we were doing all these things. We didn't have iPads to sit around and stare at. And, again, small town in Amherst, Ohio, if we wanted to ride our bike somewhere and the tire was flat, we had to fix it. The chain was broke. We had to fix it. So we learned a lot of those things. We built tree forts and we went into the woods and created paths and had BB gun fights and all that crazy stuff that kids did. But I can tell you, it taught you to be independent, right? And I just couldn't believe that. And this was young and early. I just couldn't believe that if I wanted a $45 new aluminum bat, which was the hot thing at the time, that I could go work somewhere for, 10 hours or 12 hours and someone would give me that bat. I mean, I just couldn't believe that was the way it worked. It just seemed too easy for me. So the thing that went from there was obviously the things got bigger. They required more money. They required more work. They required more effort. And so I still do that today. If I want something to come into my life, I just try to envision it and draw it out and keep it in front of me like a brochure, if you will, in a very serious, clear, concise, and colorful way, in a way that it almost gets the emotions going of the fact that I already own this thing. And I think there's some science behind the neurotransmitters and we can get into all that. But if you see something clearly enough, your body goes through this involuntary mechanism where it believes that already owns it and then puts you on this path to having that come into your life. And I just think I practiced that unknowingly early on and still do that to this very day.
I think that's brilliant. To manifest it, I believe that as well. But I also have I don't know, I call it practical side, but a tangible side that if you know what you want, I know what I got to do. And once I know what I got to do, I can do it or not, but I have that clarity and I'm not wandering all over the place. So yeah, I think everything starts with a clear vision. I don't know. You don't use the word vision that much in your materials, but I mean, is that okay, acceptable for what you want? Or do you draw a distinction?
Yeah. So there's two things. I use the word vision a lot in my coaching. I can tell you that.
Okay.
And again, I think the word goal is probably one of the most overused, underappreciated words in the English language. I mean, there's goals in sports, there's goals in kicking goals, there's goals in, company goals, personal goals, all these goals. But I really like to interchange the word path with the word goal, because if you can't take your used car, for example, and say, well, I need $3,000 for that car. I need $500 down. So I need to save $10 a week for a year, or I need to save $50 a week for 10 weeks, or however you arrive at that. If there's not a crystal clear path to the thing that you want,
yeah,
it's never going to matter. I mean, those things are going to remain in what I call hope land, dreamland, and wishland. The somedayers that say someday I'll get to that. I just think that it's just too easy to take a goal, chop it up into a million pieces, get one of those pieces every week or every day or every month, and just watch the progress happen, and then love the anticipation of the chase. Because if you're not involved in some type of gainful chase of something, I don't know how you get out of bed in the morning. I mean, if there's not a destination in front of you, you can't go to the mall without envisioning I'm going to be at the mall. So what do I wear? How do I dress? I mean, where do I go? I mean, you have a destination for everything that you do. And yet when it comes to life, we seem to wait for life to happen to us instead of us happening to it, right?
I've got a question. I couldn't agree with you more on every word out of your mouth. And we could talk about social media and how that's substituting for meaningful. But do you think um, having a vision, having a goal, fewer people do today than they did when you were growing up? Or has that changed?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you asked that question because in the book I write about a study that Virginia Tech did where they took 100 people basically and they put them in a room and they said, raise your hand if you have goals, crystal clear goals. And what they were getting at was the path. Okay. So only 20 people raised their hands and said, I have crystal clear goals. The other 80 were like just drifting through. So dismissed them. Here's the 20 people. Now they said, of the 20 of you that are left, how many of you have them written down somewhere? Only 4 said that they had it written down. Dismissed the 16. Of the 4, how many of you 4 have them posted somewhere like that painting I can see behind you there on the wall where you see it every single day, sometimes twice, 3 times a day? Only one person had that particular mechanism in play. And they followed those people for 10 years. It's no secret that one guy made 9 times more money than the other people in the control group. So and this is what I don't understand about this, guys. If you're living in a society where you want everyone to be non-parasitic, you want everyone to be supportive and contributing, why the hell are we not teaching people how to become independent thinkers? Why are we not teaching people how to use something that is free, the visual side of your brain, sit down, think of what you want, draw it out, make it crystal clear, allow that manifestation power to work because something in your brain kicks you into that gear. We don't know what that is, maybe other than the neurotransmitter bridge that people talk about. But why are we teaching that to people where they can say, okay, I don't have to worry about what is the government going to provide for me when I'm older? I don't have to worry about, being a parasite on society. I don't have to worry about these other things. I can literally allow something free in my brain that requires no money, no training, no coaching to just allow it to work, allow that power to come out and just drag me through life again in an anticipatory fashion. So yeah, that's always been a great mystery to me.
I'm curious, I see some people, and honestly, myself even at times, we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of times we set goals and really it's not about what we actually want or what we think we want. And it's just misguided. I'll try to think of an example here. So I'm thinking of the blue collar contractor who thinks that he wants to, get the next crew. And in reality, that goal is really misleaded because he's not ready for the next crew. And that's actually not going to be the most profitable endeavor for him. He doesn't have the skill set to manage people from a distance. He doesn't have the technology to be able to track what they're doing, all these kinds of things. And rather than go for that next crew, if he would just take a little bit of time and focus on increasing his margins, that would actually get him what he really wanted. How do you guide people through finding the right goals to set and actually going down the right paths rather than, choosing something that they think is what they want, but it's really misguided?
Well, one of the things that I do is I kind of take a different approach. So if you do want to expand your business, the first thing I ask you is why. What's in it for you to expand your business? Okay, let's get that very clear. And you have to convince me that that's very clear before we go to the next step. But
Can you give us an example of like a really clear reason why?
Yeah, someone has a certain way that they want to live. They have a certain home they want to live in. They have a certain car they want to drive. They have certain vacations they want to go. They have certain charities they want to be involved in. They have certain health hobbies they want to get involved in, or sports, or spiritual, peaceful. Pets. Draw your perfect nirvana, get it out there on paper, and then go after one puzzle piece at a time, right? So, but I take a little different tack there because for me, and this happened to me personally, you're one person. So the first thing I want you to do is to say, okay, the only way I can grow my company is to become irrelevant to it. And people go, what the hell does that mean? I'm the boss. I'm this guy or this gal. I make all the decisions. I go home and beat my chest. I fix this. I changed that. I motivated this. I altered that. Yeah, great. But you also worked 80 hours this week and now you've got, diabetes and high blood pressure and you can't enjoy the fruits of your labor. I would rather have you say, is there any entrepreneurs in my organization? And there's a difference between entrepreneur and entrepreneur, and that usually involves the risk. But can I find entrepreneurs around me within my organization who will run this company or at least their department the way they feel like they own it, right? And this happened to me. I'll give you a quick example. I'm sitting in my office. This is 15 years ago. I want to take the company to the next level. I had people come into my office, about 10 of them that I thought were pretty good candidates. And I said, here's a piece of paper and a pencil. I want you all to write down how far you think we can take this company in the next year, revenue wise. Now, wouldn't you know it that every one of those people put down $2 or $3 million higher in revenue than I did on my piece of paper? So
that's it. You don't know what you don't know part.
Yeah. So what does that teach you? It teaches you that you might be your own limiting factor. So when people hear me say, if you want to grow your company, become irrelevant to it, they're like, whoa, hey, hang on a minute. I'm going to lose control. You're not. You're going to become the visionary that you think you want to be. You're going to create pathways for that growth, and you're going to allow other people to do, the mechanical part of that. And then you're going to share that newfound revenue with them in such a way where they look back at you and say, thanks, Ken, now get out of my way and let me do it. And that's not pie in the sky theory. That's actual practical knowledge. It actually works, because when someone goes from, wow, I'm working for the man and I'm making him money, when they go from that to, I can create a life for myself with and through his organization, and he's putting me in control of that, man, you better get out of their way, because they're going to take your company way further than you can take it yourself.
I think that's such an interesting thing. And I think a lot of employers, contractors, small business owners don't think about their team in that respect. What are the means that you can motivate your employees like that? And we're talking financial in this case, I think a little bit in terms of they want to be able to provide for their family and do all those things. What are the mechanisms you can set up to be able to actually provide your employees with those opportunities? Is it profit sharing? Is it ownership? What are the things that you use?
Well, it's several fold. So first off, I believe that everyone that controls their own department should benefit from the efficiencies within that department financially, and that's on a monthly basis. Secondly, I think there are things like quarterly hits of the whole company performance, regardless of it's in the department, not that they're in control of. And then finally, there's this year-end celebration where if you hit this level of revenue, everybody shares in a piece of that, and you find some wonderful place to go share that, whether you go to a all-inclusive in Mexico for 5 days or you do whatever. And before anyone says, oh, I can't afford that, you're right. You can't afford it. But once you do what we're talking about as far as expanding and getting that additional revenue, you plan for that expense all along the way. So that way, when it comes time to celebrate in a place like Mexico or wherever you end up going, that is already paid for. Something we've been doing for years here. And the only caution I will say there is that every one of those people has to have a crystal clear reason for why they're doing it. They all have to have their own, you want to call them vision boards, that's fine. I think our vision boards here are much more detailed than most. But I think if you have a group of people that are each winning for themselves, then you can stand in front of them and say things like, I can't get what I want for this company, nor can I get what I want for myself until all of you get what you want first. And I absolutely believe that, guys, because I think companies are linear creatures. I think you have input from the one side, you have work creation, you have product or service and revenue, and then you have profit at the end. You're always as the owner, you're always at the end of that line. So why wouldn't you want everybody in front of you winning like crazy for themselves in a very selfish way for them? Because you're going to win in the end almost every time when that happens.
Yeah. Do you have a method for taking employees? I like the things that you mentioned there first, having each employee that's in their department benefit from the fruits of that department on a monthly basis. I think that's fantastic and really creates the incentives for people to go out and give extra. I also like the idea of an annual retreat or whatever you want to call it with the team, and an annual bonus if that fits in as well. Uh, you mentioned that every employee has to have that crystal clear vision. Is there a specific exercise that you or a rhythm that you work through as an owner with your employees to make sure that they have not only defined their crystal clear vision, but that it's at the forefront for them?
Yeah. So we have a board that you could either call the celebration board or the shame board. 90,
Okay.
99% of the time it's the celebration board. But first off, you have to ask the question, why are you here? Like, what's in it for you to work here? What's in it for you to do a great job? Tell me what your world would look like, because I want to have, if I'm going to hire an individual, I want the whole individual. I mean, if you take 24 hours in a day, 8 hours they're sleeping, 8 hours they're working, and 8 hours they're doing something else. Well, I want to know what that something else is so I can support them in getting those things. Okay. I want the whole individual, not just the 1/3 that comes to my office every day. But yeah, once I know what they're after, then we document that on a vision board scenario. And then we go after each one of those things individually, whether it's a 6-month goal, a 16-month goal, a 6-year goal, or a 16-year goal, like retirement. So the mechanism to stay present with that is I have these giant black glass boards that are between the two bathrooms, and they're mounted on the wall. And when you go to put a goal up on that board, you have to be crystal clear with it. I want to go to Ireland to visit my cousin. It's going to cost me $4,000. I'm going to save $50 a week for 80 weeks. And then I'm going to go this time next year, March 2025. I date it. I sign it. It's there for all to see. Now, you're probably not going to put a goal up on that board if you don't think you're going to do it. And believe me, we do erase goals every now and again because they're inactive. But most people will put something up there. And you and I both know, to analogize that, if someone's waiting for you at the gym at 7:30 in the morning to work out with you as a partner, you're probably going to go more often than if nobody's there. And you have to do it on your own, unless you have extreme discipline. So yeah, we put this board up, and people put these goals on the board because now there's a couple hundred people that are high-fiving them as they see the completion or the progression of these things happening. And as soon as they hit that goal, everyone says, awesome, great job. Now what? What's next? And they have to put something else up there. So not 100% of the people participate in that, but most of them do. And what I get out of one of the reasons I get out of bed in the morning is because I love to see the progression of those goals. That's pretty much my only job right now, is to, I run the financing part of the company, and I do the board meetings, and I do all that stuff. But my big thrill is who's hitting goals, where are they in their goals, how far are they down the path to hitting those things, and who am I celebrating the most recent win with. And it's just a lot of fun because everybody, they start to own the fact that they really believe that you believe in their future. And it takes a little time to get there, but people want to know that they're working for somebody that is really involved or interested in their own future. And there's just a lot of power in that hand on the shoulder kind of thing.
Absolutely. So,
and you're doing that with 250 employees, or I think you said 250.
Yeah. If you went to the board right now, which is just outside that door, there's probably, 75 goals on that one. And then in the back, there's probably 50 in production. And then there's probably another in our other facility in just an hour south from here. There's probably another 30 or 40 on that board as well. So yeah, we're getting pretty good participation. And the reason is because what we do is hard. I mean, we're ditch diggers. We're running jackhammers and concrete and tar and dust. And so I have to compete with culture with the best of the jobs that are out there. But I sincerely want people to win. If they're going to work here, I want them to win in their personal lives. And that's one great way to do it. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Well, and I'd love to even bring it down to scale. And I don't, was this rhythm and this practice that you had of goal setting part of what you did as at the franchise level early on, or did you start this whenever you went out by yourself?
No, I started this when I went up by myself. And it's funny because people come to me today and they're like, I mean, I got to worry about culture now. These people that
Oh,
run companies.
yeah, you should be.
And I'm,
No, it'll happen to you. You don't need to worry about it.
and I'm like, well, yeah. And they say, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I've been doing this for 38 years because I'm competing with a very tough job with people that are landscaping and, doing things that aren't nearly as demanding as what we do. So I was kind of forced to be culture cool before culture was even cool. But I'm glad that happened because, I've been doing this for a very long time. And it's simply this, guys. I mean, you just can't do it all. I mean, you're one human being. You just can't, you can't do it all. And why would you even want to try? It's so easy to share money with other people that you don't even have yet. Right. I mean, it's just so easy to say, here we are. Let's go. We're at X. Let's go to Y. And then I'll give you part of Y. And people are like, okay, cool. Let's go do it.
Yeah. So whenever you started this, and what is a practical way, even if you're just coaching people, I've got 5 employees. How can we get something like this started? Is it just putting up the blackboard that people can write their goals on? Is it just, I mean, I'm trying to think of what the rhythms look like because I think people want accountability. Even the business owners out there, that's why they hire business coaches. They want accountability. They want guidance. I think there has to be some level of like, we're meeting regularly one-on-one, or we have team meetings where we're talking about these things to be able to define it and get status updates rather than just leaving it to the board. And I think once your culture is large enough and it is a practice where 75 goals are on a board, yes, that can be the accountability piece. But how do you do it at that small scale when you've got 5 employees?
Well, the selfish part of me and that my publisher would say, take them through a book club with Blue Collar Cash. That's the first thing you would do.
There we go. I like that.
And what I mean by that is we've done a few book clubs with other types of books like Traction and those kinds of things. I like Traction. It's a great book. It's a little theoretical for a small shop, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's a good book. I mean, Gino Wickman did a great job with that. But yeah, the first thing I would do is I would gather people together and say, do you feel like you are in control of your future? I mean, that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you have a stake or a say or even an effect on what your future could look like? And a lot of times they'll say, well, what do you mean my future? And I'll say, well, that's exactly what I was trying to get out of this conversation. Do you know what your perfect nirvana would look like? I mean, have you ever thought about it? If you could live any way you want, okay? Now, cautionary tale, we're not all going to be rap stars and influencers and mansions and 15 cars. But people will by and large come to you and say, Ken, if I could kind of live like this, that would be really cool. And I'm like, okay, well, let's get that out of your head and onto paper. Let's draw that out. Okay. And let's create this puzzle. Okay. I believe in my heart, guys, that if I brought you a 1,000-piece puzzle and dumped it on your kitchen table and I walked away with the box, you're stuck. Okay. You don't know what you're building. You might get the square edges done. Yeah, sure. And you might start organizing the colors, but unless you were doing time for 20 years, you probably never build that puzzle. Right. So
yeah,
if you don't have the box, you're kind of done. And that's the thing that I try to impress upon people. I want to know what the picture of the puzzle box that you're building. I want to know what that is first. What's it look like? Because once you're empowered with that, there's a lot of things we can do together to help you go get those things. And part of that plan is going to be, well, we are all compensated at this level at this very moment in time. You all want these things for yourself. And I love that. So where can we take this company so that there's extra money that I can share with you to allow you to go build those puzzles? And they all start light bulbing. Okay. You can see the light bulbs going off. And they're like, wait a minute, you mean we're in control of our own financial gain? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. well, then, okay, you see this starts going on, let's go. And that to me is just step one, to get them to understand that not only do they need to have a vision of several anticipatory things, but then they have to have a mechanism for getting that. And that mechanism is usually in increased performance within the marketplace. And it just seems to work.
That's great. I love those clear questions. Do you have control of your future? I think that's such a great question for figuring out what you want. I think a lot of times people don't. Martin, you said this beforehand, that you ask all your clients when you sit down with them, what do you want? And you barely ever get an answer. I think a lot of people do want control of their future and they don't feel like they have it. And if you can say that, get them to understand that, then they can start to be clear on what they want a little bit better. So that's wonderful. I love it. Okay. So
look, may I ask real quickly, do you ever have
yeah,
people who just kind of refuse to participate? I mean, my mind's racing. I can go through a lot of companies in my mind, and I can see some of these guys not wanting to participate. And I can come up with a lot of reasons in my mind why they wouldn't want to, but that's me, not them. What about you? Have you seen that?
One of the ways that I let those types of people off the hook is I just say, look me in the eye and tell me you're chasing something. Okay. If you don't want to share me what it is, like maybe you want to get out from an addiction, or maybe you have a relationship problem, or maybe, I don't know, maybe you blew some money in some stupid ways and you're trying to come out from underneath that load. That's fine. I get it. That happens to all of us, but just look me in the eye and tell me you're chasing something. And if they can convince you of that, then I'm going to let them off the hook. But I will also tell you, I'm also going to make sure that that's the first person that hears me celebrating somebody else's win. Okay. And that's the first person that's going to hear about, this guy got a new car. This guy got a new pickup truck. This guy went to Ireland. This guy is, put a new deck in his house. This guy, whatever, this guy paid off all of his credit cards. That person is going to be the first person that hears that celebration. And I've worn a few down to the point where they're like, okay, all right, I'll do it. You know what I mean? So it does take time with some people. You're 100% right there.
And do you ever have to get people off the boat, get people off the ship if they're not buying in? Like, at what point do you make that decision?
I just say, in order for you to work here, you have to be chasing something.
Okay.
It's just,
I love that.
People,
So this is mandatory.
yeah,
At least something, or you're on the board.
yeah.
Or
You got to give me something. I mean, because I need to know that you're here for a reason. And by the way, how many other people are even going to ask you that question? Okay.
Right.
Chances are, if they have that mindset, their parents are not supportive. Their upbringing wasn't supportive. Maybe their teachers weren't supportive. And I'm trying to break that ice a little bit. So yeah, it does take time with a few people.
I'd like to, we talk about Blue Collar Cash, your book. Can you describe a little bit what the flow is of the book, the chapter? I mean, what's your process that people would get? I'm very interested. I haven't read it.
The first thing I do is talk about a little bit about myself and my upbringing. I was a horribly disfigured, facially disfigured kid when I was born, and I went through a lot of bullying and a lot of that kind of crap when I was younger. And so you have to get through that. And the best way I discovered the best way was through self-deprecating humor, and it worked, and it got me through all of that. But really, I kind of start with the fact that, as a young guy, I was willing to trade, 10 hours for this or 20 hours for that. And it just kind of grew. And my whole premise of the book is, we all think that the only way you can be successful is a college degree, right? That's just this ingrained into our head. Well, first off, that's never been true. It's certainly not true today. It might have been true in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, maybe to some degree. But one of the things I tell them is, if you don't know what you want your life to look like, and I do that early on in the book, it's not going to matter what you do for a living. Okay. I don't necessarily even care what you do for a living as much as I care about what you do with what you do for a living. Okay. Like, how do you take advantage of those opportunities? And I talk about using supply and demand in your favor, and, how blue collar trades are just as financially viable, if not more, than white collar trades, especially in today's world. and how you don't have to go into debt to make these things happen. I spent a lot of time on emotions and teaching you how emotions are a choice. Most people don't understand that. But I really try to set the whole book up to where you're drawing the whole time. Like I teach you how to do the vision board in the very beginning. And I want you to draw the whole time while you're going through this book, so that every time you get something new in your head, that manifests itself in a better drawing, or a more detailed drawing, or more visions that you have, or more confidence that you have, or even thinking bigger than you were early on. So yeah, it's a pretty good journey, and it ends with giving back, and which is, of the eight or nine characteristics that are in the book that I think everyone possesses, giving back is a very powerful one. And I end the book with that.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how you give back. I know that's a huge part of what you do these days.
I think the worst thing you can do as a business owner is write a check to some, fund in Africa and say, look at us, we're giving back. Okay. I'm not saying that those funds aren't any good. I mean, there's probably 50 different funds that you send money and you don't know where it's going or who's using it or whatever. I like to involve the staff in actually the time, talent, and treasure method of giving back. And I got to tell you guys, I mean, I've been supporting Make-A-Wish. I'm the biggest supporter in Ohio, have been for a very long time. I've done a lot of cool things with getting involved in people where, the people the kids from Make-A-Wish, we actually visit them and they visit us, so that the company sees what these people are going through, and we follow them along their journey. We've done 13 or 14 children already in that regard. I can tell you also, if you don't have a lot of money to give to people, well, everyone pretty much that I know of has a Ronald McDonald House somewhere around them. And for $70, you and 6 people can go to the grocery store. You can buy a box of spaghetti. You can buy some frozen meatballs. You can buy some garlic bread and some salad. You go to Ronald McDonald House and you build this wonderful dinner as a team, as a group, right? Takes you 3 hours. You spend $70. You put it all in their trays and wrap it all up in foil. You stick it in the refrigerator, and then you disappear. You don't know who's eating it, why, but what you do know is some family who has some child across the street in that hospital who's suffering from some terrible disease is exhausted. They are mentally spent. They want to come home. They want to spend the night at that Ronald McDonald House, and they would love a home cooked meal. My God, right? So you don't know who it is. You don't get the credit for it. You don't see these people, but $70 in 3 hours of your time is the best thing you'll do with 6 people on your staff. I guarantee you, they will fight to go back and do it again. And there's lots of examples of how time, talent, and treasure you can use in a very concentrated way. It doesn't cost you a lot of money to give back.
I love that. That's really great. And you have a course that you promote. I've seen it. Martin's seen it. Tell us a little bit about your course and how you use that for your philanthropic efforts.
So I'm going to steal this from somebody, because I heard the other day that if you just read the book and put it on the shelf, it's more shelf help than self-help. Okay. And that got me thinking. So I am so passionate about, having a vision for what you want your life to look like, and the fact that it's free and anybody can do it. And the characteristics of entrepreneurialism are in each one of us if we just have a reason to get them out. And I didn't want the book to be one of those shelf help books. So I said, okay, I'm going to take this book. I'm going to chop it up into 8 sections. They're 45 minutes a session. You can do it in a weekend or in a week or a month, however you want to do it. But by the time you're done with this course, I guarantee you will look differently at the way you live your life. I mean, I 100% guarantee you. You don't have to work out for 6 years or go on diets or anything like this. Is just a mental exercise. And I guarantee it that you will look differently at the way you live your life. And I've seen courses out there for $2,000, $3,000. No, that's not what this is about. This is $179. You get a free book with it. And for a movie and a dinner, you can change the way you see your life going forward. And my life was pretty good before I wrote this book and before I did this course. I've been very blessed. I'm grateful for that. So I donate most of the money for this course to be all these philanthropic organizations. So if you decide to help yourself, just know that you're going to be helping someone else at the same time, which is always cool.
Can I ask you, well, I know I can ask you, is there a difference that you see between people, let's say 20s and 30s, and what they want in their vision and how they approach it, and people who are in their 50s, maybe 55 years old and haven't really done anything? Is it the same process to begin to get control of your life? Is it different?
Well, I can tell you that I've had some people who are 50 who said, I thought my life was going in one direction. I read your book and now I'm taking in another direction. I've never been happier. I've seen that happen. Yeah. Is it easier to reach someone in their 20s and 30s? It probably is, because they have less of the world experience to kind of harden them, if you will. But I can also tell you that the kids in their 20s and 30s, at least the 20s for sure, they've spent the better part of their life on that stupid phone, comparing their lives to everybody else's lives on social media. And that is devastating. I mean, am I that pretty? Am I that strong? Am I that, tall? Am I that good looking? I mean, it's crazy, which is why I push very hard for you to be the best possible you that you can be. That's what the comfort, peace, and freedom thing is all about in this book. I want you to be the absolute best, polished version of you that God gave you. And every one of us has the ability to do that. Every one of us can be resilient and persistent and have faith and hope and courage and vision and initiative and generosity. Every one of us can possess those things. And so there is no more happier human being than someone who's comfortable in their own skin. And that's why I say, you take what God gave you and make it absolutely wonderful. And if you just listen to what I coach you on or tell you about, and I have no college degree, I have no training whatsoever. There's no letters after my name, but I think I got this figured out and I can help you get there.
Yeah. You had mentioned.
Sorry, I was looking at my phone trying to remember the name of The Coddling of the American Mind, and Jonathan Haidt's other book. I think it's The Fragile Generation. Maybe you've read it. I don't know, but it describes exactly. I mean, the data's right there. The smartphone showed up. It isn't just that you can watch videos and you're distracted. It's the comparisons that you talked about. Am I stronger? Am I pretty enough? Am I happy enough? Oh, they're all at a party and I'm not there. And all of that feedback that's just wiping people out. And they could be out there working to buy that baseball bat you've been talking about. There's a goal. If I get that baseball bat, then I'll be cool at the park, right?
I'm just saying, this is what you're given. This is the hand of cards that you've got. You don't get to really, if you have 6 cards in your hand, you don't get to switch 4 of them out, right? So you can improve your cards. Yeah, absolutely. But I would say this, okay, you and only you know what your favorite color is, your favorite pastime is, your favorite peace moment is, your favorite mode of transportation, your favorite house, your favorite car, your favorite vacation, your favorite dog. Okay. You and only you know these things. So why are we listening to all these societal norms and societal pressures that are trying to convince you otherwise? Go sit in a very dark, quiet room with a light above you and draw out what you think your life could be and how you want it to be best for you. It doesn't, I've got a guy in the book, quick story. I was in Jamaica at a Club Med and took a bunch of people from my office. And you get these wristbands, which tell you when you're going to be there and when you're leaving. Mine's yellow. I came on a Wednesday. I'm leaving on a Wednesday. Yours is purple. You came on a Thursday. You're leaving on a Thursday, whatever. This particular guy I saw at the bar every night, he had like 8 of these wristbands on. So I went up to him after 4 or 5 nights and we were doing shots of tequila. And I said, hey, the guy had a tan like you can't believe. He had brown hair, was all bleached, sun bleached, golden yellow. And I'm like, what's the story with all the bands? He goes, oh yeah, well, I'm from Minnesota. He goes, I have a landscape business. I have a small ranch house. It's perfect in a barn. I've got my pickup truck and all my tools. I work from March through December. I bust my ass. I mow all these lawns. I have guys that help me do it. And we create all this revenue. Okay. And then in December, I shut it all down. I fix all my equipment. And then I get on a plane and I come to Jamaica for 12 straight weeks. Right. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He goes, no, I move around to all these little clubs that are all affiliated. I'll spend a week here. I'll spend a week here. I'll spend a week there. He shuts his life down and goes and lives a whole nother life. He's like a whole nother guy for 3 months. And I thought, that's pretty cool. I mean, is that for everybody? No. Is he still doing it today? Probably not, but he's living the life exactly the way he sees it. And he's willing, and by the way, he gets a tremendous deal on this because he's buying so many of these packages.
Right.
But let's think about that for a second. Who's really got life licked? This guy or the guy that's, just driving himself crazy, 24/7, 365. I don't know. That's the way he wanted to live. I thought that was pretty cool. In fact, I put him in the book. I don't even know his name. The chapter is called The Grass Cutter from Minnesota because I don't even know this guy's name. And maybe someday he'll reach out to me if he reads the book. But it's just incredible. Everyone has their own version or vision of their nirvana. And if we just focus on that, we can all just live just the way we want.
You had mentioned earlier that there are some people in 40s, 50s that, that you get to work with them and they're maybe going in this direction and they completely 180 to a different direction. Do you have any examples? You don't need to mention any names or anything, but just of what direction they were on and how and what direction they're on now. I'd love to hear a little bit of that.
There's two stories. The first one is a guy was a plumber's helper through college, thought he had to go to college, got a bunch of debt. He went there basically to learn beer pong. Okay. Had no real reason for going to school. Got this sales job in the 15th floor of some cubicle selling medical supplies, hates his life, trying to pay the debt off. He said, I always loved working with my hands. I always loved being a plumber. So I quit my job and went back to being a plumber. It hurt for about 6 months, but I got back on track real quick. And he goes, I've never been happier. He goes, I'm outside working. I got my own truck. I'm working. I'm buying into the guy's business. I'm happy as a clam. And so that's one way where the guy just cut bait. I mean, he just literally, pulled the plug. Other people I've seen where they're in the corporate world, but they really love making things. Like the one guy makes river edge tables. You know what that is? It's like a
the overflow deals with epoxy and stuff.
Yeah. Slab of wood with colorful epoxy. So he started making those. And the good news for him and the good news for everyone out there listening is in this day and age, with things like social media and the internet and having your businesses online, you can run a company from your cell phone. So what he did is he sunset his career that he hated while he was sunrising the epoxy table business. And now he's selling tables all over the country for $5,000-$10,000 a piece. And he's working in a shop and he's absolutely loving life. In that scenario, it took him a little longer because he had to marry, losing some revenue with gaining the other. And there's that perfect X factor point in the middle where you can jump ship. So for anyone out there that, maybe loves to craft or build or do anything, you can definitely side gig it for a very long period of time until it becomes your full-time gig. And whether that takes 1 year, 3 or 5 years, who cares? You're going to be happy doing it, right?
This is probably in your book and in the course, but can you give somebody walks into my office, I say, hey, come back. I want to know what you want. I'm not going to say it quite like that. And they say, well, how am I supposed to figure that out? I've been in turmoil in my brain for 10 years trying to figure out what I want. Haven't gotten anywhere, still doing the same thing. What is it that's a tipping point or kicks them out of the nest or whatever? What's something somebody can do to start by your book, I guess, but after that?
I don't have my box of crayons here, but I normally give them a box of 64 Crayola crayons. The last time you held a crayon in your hand, you were probably 5 years old, but It was the most creative, less stressed, most joyful time in your life, right? You didn't have anything clogging all those thoughts up. No job, no, family, no occupation. I mean, no bills, no stressors. So I literally hand them a box of crayons and say, go away and draw your life the way you want it. Here's your poster board. Here's your 8 categories. Put the house in the middle, put the car down left, put the vacation up right, put the pet down left or down right, put the charity up left. You just arrange this thing and just start drawing your life. Draw it the way you want it, not the way anybody else wants you to have it. What do you want? Okay. Start with something easy. If you can design the perfect vacation, what would it be? Okay. And get into the sensory part of it. Are you sticking your toes in the sand? Is there a lounge chair? Is there a towel? Is there an umbrella? Is there a margarita? Is there the Beach Boys playing on your radio? Are you smelling the number 8 copper tone suntan lotion? Are you feeling the breeze? Is your skin warm from the sun? Are you looking at people walking by on the beach? Get that deep into it and just say, okay. And I can tell you, everybody I've done that with, the light bulb just starts to turn and they're like, wow. Okay, you mean I'm in control of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, and you mentioned 8 categories. Maybe I missed it earlier, but that would be like vacation, car, family life, wealth. I mean, is that what your 8 categories are?
Yeah. So it's vacation, it's house, it's a give back, it's sport or hobby, it's your health moment, it's your motor transportation. It's what I think you should have to lead a balanced life. I mean, you got to take care of yourself. You have to have enjoyment in some type of hobby or sport. You have to live in some place that you love. You have to be able to get around this earth. You have to take some time out to love your life. You have to find vacation wise, you have to find peaceful moments. So, you can recharge your brain and hopefully you're petting your dog or your cat because they love you regardless of what you do in life. So yeah, I think there might be more categories, but to me, those are the basic 8 balancers that can make a pretty cool life.
I think that's as important as anything to give them those ideas like vehicle. Work on that. Oh, okay, I can do that. I'm not looking at a blank piece of paper. I've at least got some chapter headings there, right?
I've had 15-year-olds in the inner city who looked at me like I was about to steal their lunch for 3 straight days. And on that 4th day, they came in with a drawing of a brand new Ford pickup truck that was silver. It was an F-250. And they knew that if they saved $100 a month, they could put money down on it in a year. And that's $25 a week. And they turned. And at the end of that session, they came to me and they said, you're the only one that's ever cared about me. And I can tell you, what do I've got? I've got 3% to do with that process. I mean, they're going to do the other 97%. But just the fact that someone said, I want to know what you think. I want to know what you want. Screw everybody else. What is it? And I've had people that were pretty hardened kids that were like, turn the worm on that, which I was very grateful for, actually.
Wow. Well, man, this has been a really great conversation, inspiring, refreshing. And what I've loved most about it is that it's helped with a couple of things. One, mindset just in general of understanding that there is a way, there is a path, and you can create it, and you've got to be focused. And the other is just the direction, that you have to be crystal clear on the direction you're going. If you don't know where you're going, you'll wind up somewhere else. And those two things together, I think are huge. We've covered a variety of different things throughout the episode, but all kind of fall in line with that. And we really appreciate you being on, Ken, to share with us not only about what has happened in your story, but in the stories of the people around you, and just some actionable advice that we can carry on in our businesses and our work to not only motivate ourselves, but to really motivate our employees and our teams to be chasing something. So it's been really great. Ken, how can people reach out to you? Obviously, we've got the book, Blue Collar Cash. We've got the course that we are going to link to in the show notes as well. If people want to reach out, how can they find you?
Well, the best place to go is at it's kenrusk.com. You can see what we're doing there as well. And also you can follow me at Ken Rusk Official. You can see what we're doing. I did a pretty funny spoof on a soap commercial for the course there that that you might want to check out real quick. It just loaded up yesterday. I have a group of guys that help me do it, and you'll see them in the video. It's hilarious. But yeah, and guys, thanks for having this discussion today. I love throwing these ideas back and forth because it doesn't require anything other than you just being you and saying, okay, I got this. I mean, have confidence in yourself and sit still and think about these things and draw them out and to the world be damned. I'm going to be the best version of me possible. So thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Been great. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll definitely link to those things in the show notes. We'll link to your website, kenrusk.com, as well as your social media handle. Thanks for being on. Everybody, go and buy the course. Get on board with it. I bet it's not only going to be valuable for you, but for your teams as well. Ken, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks. You as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to The Cash Flow Contractor. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Visit thecashflowcontractor.com. See you next episode.